A note. Following advice from work-life imbalance may lead to action being taken by HR, your family, the authorities, or higher powers. Welcome to Work-Life Imbalance, an advice show focusing on workplace and lifestyle issues. Any resemblance to actual advice, living or dead, or actual wisdom is purely coincidental. I'm your monstrous manager, Frank Eastman.
And I'm your lovable office companion, Derek Lewis.
Today, we'll be talking about deadlines in the deep dive before we address some audience questions and issues from the internet. But first...
Frank, before we get to the daily stand-up, I have an important announcement that I feel I should share with you and with our listeners. My house smells like farts, and it's not my fault.
It's not your fault for once.
For once. No, we just finished our meal prep for the week, and Jessica decided that it was a great idea to do Brussels sprouts. So, now, at least for tonight and for the rest of the foreseeable future, my house will smell like farts. And for those of you who have never cooked Brussels sprouts or experienced them cooking before, it is just this unholy funk that, I mean, it really does require like a fucking priest to come and exorcise the stank out of your house. Like it is ridiculous. So yeah, I will be fighting that, and I will try to fight through it and be funny. But if I am overcome by the stink, Frank, I'm putting the responsibility on you to call in help.
So one, in the news, there was recently that Uranus smells like farts.
How did they know, Frank? How did they know?
How did they know? Apparently using, science, probably some sort of spectral graphing of light as it's reflecting off of Uranus. They managed to determine that there's a chemical compound that makes up a decent amount of the atmosphere, and that chemical, when found on Earth, smells like farts. So. I think the science community has been laughing about that for forever. My second is a serious one, though. How are you cooking these poor Brussels sprouts that have done nothing to anyone that the whole house smells like sulfur?
I mean, so I don't know, like, I'm not familiar with the different types of Brussels sprouts or whatnot, but if you take shredded Brussels sprouts and and they touch any heat source, if you walk them past a candle, then they will begin to emanate fart smell.
The devil's confetti.
Okay, that would got me. That is now the permanent name for Brussels sprouts, in my opinion. The devil's confetti. Oh, that is really good, Frank. I'm gonna write that down. Hold on.
Now, stovetop cooking Brussels sprouts, I think you might run into those issues. What we usually do, because I'll cop to it, we eat a decent number of Brussels sprouts in this house.
Uh-huh.
We usually roast the Brussels sprouts in the oven.
Right.
And like I'll do them whole, and I'll hit them with some olive oil and then some seasoning. Or sometimes I'll hit them with a little bit of like balsamic before roasting them.
I think you're onto it. I think the main problem is that when you pierce the outside of the Brussels sprout, it begins to start emanating that funk. So as long as you leave them whole, and you roast them or something like that, or even if you were to saute them in the pan, as long as they were whole, I think that those outer leaves are specially designed to hold in the funk.
To hold in the nastiness. Yeah, that's what they're there for, in general.
No, but unfortunately we will we will saute shredded Brussels sprouts, which does, I mean, it's delicious after it's done. I mean, Gets all up in there. All of the Brussels sprout is nice and tender. So like it tastes good, but Jesus
Smells
Christ,
bad.
the smell. Yeah, we are not getting our security deposit back. Holy shit. we are sunk on that one.
Oh man, I like Brussels sprouts quite a bit. So here's another one. I am the age that I am, and I'm soon to be older in a little bit of time. It was only within the last, I would say, year and a half that I found out that Brussels sprouts come on a stalk.
Yeah. It looks like those like jingle bells. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's fucking freaky as hell looking. I will hand up. I would have until that moment thought that Brussels sprouts were just little tiny cabbages, like just the little tiniest cabbage known to man, and they just grew in little rows. And I was like, man, Brussels sprouts are a bitch to harvest. And then I saw some on the stalk in the store one day, and I was like, you got to be fucking me. That's how Brussels sprouts come.
So I mean,
I'm
not trying to, basically, say that I'm superior in this one because I really kind of thought the same. I guarantee you, I saw it first on like Chopped or something when they pull out a whole stalk of Brussels sprouts. But the thing is, what I want to know is, okay, so if it was me walking through some area, like some woodland area, and I saw Brussels sprouts in their natural habitat, and it basically looks like fucking like alien pods chilling on a stick. Who the fuck looked at that and saw a meal like that? That kind of shit blows my mind. It's like we have all these foods that are just so odd, and somebody had to eat it first.
Blow your mind even more, it didn't come like that.
What do you mean?
I'm fairly certain those motherfuckers are the same general thing as broccoli and cauliflower.
Okay.
And we have mutated them over the years to turn into the Brussels sprout.
Wow.
Yeah,
Man,
I mean, we have done some buck wild shit with vegetables over the... Like, everyone's all up in the air about GMO corn, and I'm just like, look at the goddamn Brussels sprout. Does that look at all like the broccoli? And the broccoli doesn't look like it originally looked in the wild either. Like, I think original wild broccoli was like a stalky thing with, like, some little florets at the top, and was barely edible. And they just have, bred it over the years until it's this gigantic, bulky mass of tasty broccoliness.
So I want to believe that, like, originally Brussels sprouts did kind of like grow on their own, but like slowly but surely they kind of like the scientists kind of coaxed it up onto the stalk, and then from then on they just kind of grew on the stalk. They kind of had you like, come on, get up on the stalk. Yeah, we did it. We can now grow them on the stalk. Oh man. Okay. I did not intend for this to be a 10-minute conversation about my house farts, but sometimes life be like that.
There we are. I mean, it's one of those.
I hope your daily stand-up
things.
was really shitty.
Yeah, my daily stand-up for today was going to be terrible anyway, so we might as well just let that one go.
Put that one back in the pocket then.
Yeah, I'll put that one back in the quiver, and we'll pull that out later.
Oh, I apologize, Frank. Didn't necessarily mean to derail it that hard.
That's all right. We can talk about your fart smell in your house whenever it necessitates. The thing is, I'm just thinking about it.
About my house fart smell?
About your house farts. It's on my mind constantly. I can't stop thinking about it. No, I realize I've been like watching Food Network and shit for over a decade. Like over a decade. I would say probably on to 15 years. I have to think that Food Network has been a thing, and I've been watching it since it first was a thing. And somehow, in all of that time, I still had not managed to see a Brussels sprout in its entirety.
It was a very well-kept secret, I think. I think they didn't want people to know, how the sausage was made in that case. Like, I think they didn't want people to see how weird they look, because they had such a hard time getting people to eat Brussels sprouts for so long.
I know.
And then when people were on the cusp of like being okay with Brussels sprouts because it's healthy for you and it's good on that, like really good on the scale of whatever it is, where like kale and broccoli rabe are like top of the health charts, and then you have like Brussels sprouts are like 2 or 3 or 4 on the list. So people saw that and like, okay, now we will agree to eat Brussels sprouts. And then all of a sudden, for somebody to show that on TV, and everybody's like, fuck that. No, never mind.
Not that alien pod looking bullshit. I ain't fucking with that.
I've seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I ain't touching that shit.
This is how you get snatched up.
I mean, I saw what it did to Donald Sutherland. I saw what it did to Donald Sutherland. I'm not about to touch those things. And to Jeff Goldblum. Oh,
yeah.
Poor Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum always comes out the worse for wear in these things.
He really does. I mean, I'm trying to think of any movie he's been in. I'm not 100% familiar with his entire works, but most of the ones that I remember him being in, like The Fly and Jurassic Park and Independence Day and all that kind of jazz, like, things don't always go real well for Jeff Goldblum.
It's not all coming up roses for Jeff Goldblum. Want to get into the deep dive?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so today on the deep dive, I want to talk about deadlines. Generally speaking, they're a necessary evil, but they can become a problem when one or more parties don't agree on when your work should be completed. And a lot of it has to do with who decides when a deadline is due. Sometimes it can be decided by the team. Sometimes it's decided by the boss. Sometimes it's decided by the industry or a client. And getting all those parties to agree on when something can be done or when it should be done or when it has to be done can be a pretty decent tightrope to walk. Frank, you are a little bit more on the process side than I am. Give me the skinny on the havoc that you have seen deadlines wreak.
So deadlines are sort of one of those constants of work, and I'm a project manager by training over time, and having been in the software engineering field for as long as I have, I've sort of been witness to the evolution of the agile transformation and agile software development. And so originally, as a project manager, like, deadlines were what I did, and I provided deadlines and I measured, and as the deadline shifted, I would respond back and, try to update all the stakeholders on where things were and how they were going. And we had gigantic charts that were put together with complex formulae and all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the day, that was all bullshit.
It really was.
It was
100% an exercise in horseshit.
Yeah, it was just a complex, in-depth, long-term exercise in lying out my ass. Because if I started and I were to tell you that this complex software development project is going to be done in 15 months, 2 weeks, 3 days, 48 minutes, and 13 seconds, I am lying to you. I might be lying to you backed up by many, many numbers and a lot of figures. I might be able to show you the math that suggests that I am not lying to you. But I'm full of shit. I can't guarantee that. And at best, it is a wild shot in the dark.
Right.
The
thing is that, essentially what you're talking about is that, planning something 15 months in advance or planning 15 months out. I mean, really, it's just, hopefully, at best, like, it is kind of this small addition and accumulation of the smaller tasks that hopefully your team or, whoever is kind of breaking down the requirements is able to kind of piece this up into smaller pieces. And hopefully, you've tasked each one of those and you have added them up together, and that's what the eventual timeline is. Like that is best case scenario. So even if you have good estimation, even if you have something that's based on some sort of reality, the thing is, in order for that to work, every single step along the way has to go perfectly. And you and I both know
that ain't gonna
that
happen.
ain't gonna happen. Literally, I've been a part of, probably 45, 50 projects, of varying sizes, some, really big efforts, some, really small, like 1 or 2 week projects. But by and large, there has never been a plan. What's the old saying?
A plan never survives contact with the enemy.
Exactly. As soon as you start looking at a code base, take your plan, ball it up, maybe wipe your ass with it, and then toss it straight in the toilet. That is the best place. That is the only practical use for any one of those plans, because, best case scenario, it shifts slightly. And the problem is, once something shifts at the very beginning of the start of a project, that'll shift by 10%. The next thing has to shift by like 15%. And before long, that 15-month project turns into 23 months, turns into 28 months. And it just starts ballooning until somebody somewhere does a cost-benefit analysis, and they're like, oh, shit.
We have to stop the bleeding and fire all of these people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the switch to Agile didn't really change that.
Right.
But what the switch to Agile did was change the expectations of the stakeholders.
Right.
To say, hey, we're going to work in much smaller and much more predictable pieces of time. So instead of lying to you and telling you that in 15 months I'm going to be done with this whole project, I'm going to tell you something that I have a much better chance of being accurate with.
Right.
Which is to say, I'm going to get this small piece of it done in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And as I usually tell people, I can be accurate or I can be precise. And as we get farther out, that's all that we're left with. I can be accurate as we get farther out, but I cannot be precise.
Right. Because, accuracy is, basically being correct in what you estimate, but being precise is actually
the granularity of the unit of measurement.
Right. So, the further you get out, you really, to be accurate, you have to start padding numbers and padding numbers and padding numbers in order to even approach any semblance of accuracy. So your precision goes to just flat zero. I've had multiple people in the past, just a couple of years, ever since I really embraced been in a company that embraced an agile transition. And for a long time, people have fought me over agile. It's like agile is just a waste of time. It's just more meetings, and all it's doing is slowing the process down. And just kind of listening to what you were saying before, just imagine like a waterfall methodology. You basically go in the closet for 15 months and you come back out and you tell them, we were wrong, it's going to take another 9 months. That is not going to fly. But if you're doing agile, then you may find out that something's going to be delayed very soon. And so it gives you a way to communicate that properly to the stakeholders in a way that is still, they're not going to be happy about it. Nobody's happy that a project is going to be delayed, but at least that gives them information to then make a decision. Maybe the decision is to stay the course and to live with the extra cost, but maybe it's, okay, well, we said we want this, maybe we can shave off 10% and still hit the deadline. And, that's something that is very important for stakeholders to be able to have.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that I like the best, and this is one of those little tips, is fail faster.
Right.
If we can fuck it up as much as we can early on, we will learn from our fuck-ups and we will get better faster and thus deliver better things more quickly.
And it seems like it's at least at, just on face value, like it sounds pessimistic, but it's really not. It's just pragmatic, because you're going to fail. You're going to fuck up your estimations. Like, that's just how it's going to go. And the longer, the longer you work in the industry, it doesn't help you estimate better. It just lets you know how wrong estimations are. Like, it just gives you less and less faith in them. And that is information that you can work with. Like, that is something that you can work around. And clients sometimes don't necessarily understand that. But with the fail faster methodology, I mean, you are able to kind of uncover, basically pick up one rock to see, oh shit, there are 15 other rocks under here that are completely impossible to get over. So we need to quickly, in the most annoying word in the industry, pivot.
Jesus. One of the overused businessisms.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the concept of that, quick pivot from one thing to another, but God bless if that does not come up in every meeting. Like, alignment and pivot are two of the things they have replaced synergy. Like, synergy used to be the thing that I would like make fun of. Jargon, that would be my go-to jargon thing to make fun of. But no, it is now pivot and alignment.
Synergy's out, and now it's stuff that you would hear at the body shop from the mechanic about your car.
So, okay, in your opinion, what is the best source of a deadline? Like who is best equipped to determine the deadline?
I mean, if we're talking about deadlines, the person who's best equipped to establish the deadline is the person with the biggest pocketbook.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's a truth. For as much as we would like to get away from that, sometimes you still kind of get to at the end of the day, this has to be done by Tuesday kind of situations.
Right.
And so it's not, I see a lot of people get frustrated because they think an agile transition means that there will never be deadlines, and those deadlines are a thing of the past. And that's just not, that's not necessarily going to happen.
Right.
Really what you're doing is you're trying to better prepare yourself to have conversations with the owners and stakeholders,
right,
about moving their expectations toward faster feedback so that we're doing more stuff before the deadline and getting better feedback from them before the deadline. Because, we'll still end up like, okay, that's fun and all, but if you guys don't have it by, I don't know, Tuesday, we're not going to pay you for it. And then you've still got to respond to those situations.
Right, because sometimes the deadlines are superficial. Like, sometimes they're arbitrary. We need this by December 10th of 2019 because that's the thing that we said in our head. Like, that's what we wrote down on our calendar when we wanted to have this thing done. If that's the deadline, if that's the case with it, then, chances are there are ways to, get some wiggle room or, find some purchase in there to where you can, modify that or whatnot. But there are some times where, deadlines are complete drop dead dates. If there's like a new law being passed, like there's currently doing with GDPR in Britain.
Oh yeah.
Basically, if you service one of those countries, you have to have your security on point by, I guess now it's like fucking May 25th. Like, it is coming up. And if you don't have it done by then, if you don't have your certs in place, you don't have your encryption in place, you don't have all the things that, all of the, data encrypted and things like that. If you don't have all of those in place by this certain date, your stuff stops working. Or if it doesn't stop working, like if you don't power it off until it's ready, you start getting billed, and or fined, not billed, fined, and it will be expensive.
Fine. Millions of dollars.
So, there's some hard deadlines that are mandated completely outside of your control, and those are the ones that, they're going to be tough, but at least they're understandable. Then there are some deadlines that are the ones that I fought most, essentially are made by bad bosses, to be honest. And this story is one that both falls under bad bosses and under deadlines. But there was this one place I was working at early in my career, and I loved working for the company. But the boss that I had was he was a big showman. Like, he did not care about process so much. He didn't care about anything. He just wanted people to think that he could run a software shop really well. And he could not, but he pretended that he could. And whenever he would basically go out and, write these deadlines or, write these checks that we had to cash, then we would literally be sometime pulling, 10, 15, 20-hour days if we had to. And
Oh yeah.
there was this one deadline that I remember. It was like 4 months before I quit because I could not take it anymore. He basically put a deadline that was probably, I mean, no joke, probably a solid month before it needed to be done, or a solid month before we could possibly get it done. And so, we told him, it's like, hey, you need to move this deadline. We're not telling you that we're not willing to put in work. We're telling you that no matter how much we work, we will not have it done in time. And so, he took it back to stakeholders, and they're like, oh no, they've already made other commitments based on the deadline, so we're stuck. So it committed us to probably 3 weeks of absolute hell. And I mean, this is probably the worst 3 weeks that I've ever experienced in my working career. And they were at the beginning of my career, which why I didn't just say fuck it and go into accounting, I don't know. That should have been my turnoff. But
accounting's its own special hell, but go on.
Okay, so yeah, that's true. I should have picked a little bit softer landing. But no, so essentially, they said, there's no change to the deadline, so they set up this big meeting. We're talking, it was a family company, and like the top 10 people in the company were mostly family members, and all of these top 10 people, except for like the matriarch herself, were at this meeting, at this big demo. We're talking an entire day just sectioned off so that we could demo the stuff that we were working on. And I bet you me and 2 other developers worked for 36 hours straight. Like, we did not sleep, we did not leave, we barely ate. And so we worked our asses off. We got it 99% done. And we were in there at 8 a.m.
1%'s gonna fuck you.
We were in there at 8 a.m. We had all of our presentations ready. We had our demo set up as perfectly as we could with the the little amount of sleep that we had. And so we start doing the demo, and it's almost right. And then there's one error that happens. There's some server error that we're trying to squash, and it just came up because of a data inconsistency. And the stakeholders didn't care that much. Like, they were like, oh, that's no big deal. But my boss made a big deal about it. He's like, oh yeah, that's just an error that this, and he goes off and he tries to explain the error that he doesn't know anything about. And essentially he kind of, waves over at us, is like, oh, they'll fix it. They look tired, but they're okay. They were just up late last night playing video games. We sat there probably 5 hours, and we all looked at each other, and I mean, what do you even say? What can you even do in that situation? Our boss had just disrespected us so bad over something that he committed us to, that he knew that we couldn't deliver. We told him we couldn't deliver, and yet we still were left holding the bag. That is probably the most disrespected I have ever felt in my career, and all because of some fucking arbitrary deadline. God, I'm still hot. I'm hot. I'm hot, Frank.
That was less deadline and more one of my rules for living,
which is
moving forward, is never get into a situation in which your boss or the person who's determining the work is a salesman.
Right.
You have to have one, and if you can, 2 or 3 levels between you and sales.
Yep.
Or your life will be a constant, unending fucking nightmare.
Because whether they're actual sales or whether they are, like you said, in kind of a salesman in spirit, if they are in sales, or if they're in a position of sales, in this case, they are going to do something that makes them look good, or that makes them, that it positively affects their bottom line. And those decisions are normally not going to be beneficial for anybody that is actually going to have to do the work. Like, just across the board, it's going to fuck somebody, and it won't be them.
So let me tell you about some more of my rules for living in the elevator on the way to accounting.
Okay. I can't wait to get more Frank's little tips.
Hey, this is Clyde.
And this is Sugar Tip.
And some other dumb redneck.
It's Sparky, dumb shit.
Yeah, whatever.
And this is Sucralose Memories.
How many times do we have to tell you? Sugar tits, Blondie.
Sorry, you guys are the dumb ones on this show.
Hell Pecker, yeah. It's the Old Still Radio Show.
Find us at www.oldstillradioshow.com.
Come on and listen to the Old Still Radio Show.
Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? Well, did you know there are countless other tabletop games that are just as, if not even more fun? Games like Shadowrun, Blades in the Dark, Numenera, 7th Sea. The only problem is going through and reading that many books can be time consuming and expensive, especially if you don't like the book you bought. That's where I come in. If you're tired of the same old sword and sorcery, or just want to learn some unique and fun games, come listen to Metamagic, the RPG podcast, where I not only break down different tabletop RPGs, but give you the tips and tools needed to run a better game or be a better player. That's Metamagic, the RPG podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe today.
All right. Want to get into a question from the audience?
Let's do it. What percentage of the workday should I spend texting wrestling memes to my friends? Sent in by Andrew from Wednesday Roundup.
So, I mean, the exact amount, exact percentage, I'm not entirely sure. But I don't really think there's any hard and fast rule that that is a hard cutoff. What do you think, Frank? How much do you? I mean, you text me like all sorts of stuff about like, you know, Roddy Piper and like the, you know, Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. I mean, you are all about you know, texting the memes to me. But how much of your day do you spend texting the wrestling memes?
I don't spend any more than, I think, an hour and a half out of an 8-hour workday texting wrestle memes.
Oh, WrestleMania? Is that a thing? Can we make?
You can just go right to hell, Derek. Don't worry, they got all kinds of shaved Brussels sprouts waiting for you.
Oh man, see, I'm not gonna say that I dislike wrestling. I had this very long period of time in my life, like from like the age of like 8, or maybe even a little, maybe like the age of 7, until probably 16 or 17, where I was every single Monday night, I was watching WWF. Like I watched, you know, WWF Heat, WWF Raw, like anything that I could watch that was WWF, I was there. I don't know what it was. Like it was the pageantry of it. I knew that it was fake. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew that it was fake. But there was really this really
the pomp, the circumstance.
There was
the bulging, sweaty men all oiled up and dancing with each other.
Look, I'm not saying that I found myself through wrestling, but I didn't not find myself through wrestling. But the thing is, there was this really, you know, kind of special period in wrestling. What was his name? The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. There was a time where, you know, he started to come on the scene, and I think it was like some like ladder match with some guy that was like a dentist or something. I don't know.
Ah, yes, Dan the dentist.
Don't remember his name. I mean, he's been kind of lost to the annals of history because Shawn Michaels gave him that sweet, sweet chin music and beat him.
His dental drill maneuver was no match for Shawn Michaels.
I mean, I know you're trying to speak out your ass, but you're not really far off. He had like some like I forget what he called it. It was like there's a move called the DDT, and I think he called it like the DDS or something because he was a dentist. So.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But no, I mean, like that was where I think my love for wrestling started, because I guess that was in like 92 or 93, and I had never seen like a pay-per-view event or anything like that, but they played this on regular cable, and I was just fucking wrapped. Like I was watching that TV, waiting for Shawn Michaels to start like bobbing his leg up and down, and for him to like deliver that sweet chin music and knock that fucker off like a 20-foot ladder. Oh man, that was cinematics at its finest for the time.
I have to assume that like that was literally one of his catchphrases was that sweet chin music.
Right. That was his whole thing, is that like he would have this thing where he'd be down and out. He would be getting his ass kicked, and then he'd just like get by a stroke of luck, like lay him out on the other side of the ring, and then he'd get in the corner and like he'd start like bobbing his leg, like just like kind of just bouncing it up and down, and then they'd stand up, they'd look at him just in time for his foot to be coming straight to their chin, and they'd get knocked down, they'd get pinned, and he would win. Like that was literally how 90% of his matches ended. Thinking back,
See,
that may have been staged.
I don't know. We're gonna have to go back to the video to
Review
see.
the tapes.
See, the size of the fucking nerd that I am, I was thinking that you were just referencing like 1930s war slang for punching someone. Until you said it a couple times, and I was like, wait, no, this guy probably adopted this as some sort of wrestle move.
Yep. That was Shawn Michaels' signature move for a long period of time. But yeah,
See, my knowledge of wrestling, like, I am Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant.
It's like the mid '80s type of era.
Yeah, like the mid '80s. That's when I knew wrestling, and not a whole lot, but just some. And then the next time that I intersect wrestling, is Dream Daddy.
So you took the long trip around, but it finally came full circle when you found the hot dad that you liked the best.
That's right. That sweet Manchego.
I have not played Dream Daddy, but I've seen it played, and good shit all around. But no, I think I'm trying to think of exactly when it was. I guess it was somewhere in like 2000 or 2002 where I finally gave up on wrestling, because like it you have to
Had it
suspend.
gotten too real at that point?
No, you have to suspend disbelief whenever you watch wrestling. I mean, that's a core part of it, obviously. But I think it was around when Stone Cold Steve Austin got and I don't know if he actually broke his neck or like it was all staged or what. But, after Steve Austin broke his neck and things kind of went into a weird period where there wasn't there weren't those like quintessential badasses. Like you had The Rock that was kind of getting out of it because he was starting to do fucking movies, like
movies and shit.
What was that one? Walking something. Shit, I forget what movie it was, but yeah, The Rock started doing movies.
Walking Tall?
Walking Tall.
Or Walk Tall?
Yeah, that was it. And so The Rock started doing movies, and I mean, he wasn't half bad. Like he's a really funny guy, and so for the movies were just a natural progression of his career. But you started having less of these quintessential badasses, and Triple H was getting on up there in years. Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I don't know if you're familiar with Triple H, but he was like the snooty bad guy who pretended to be like super rich and then snubbed people, and then that started fights and all that kind of shit. But
go on, Derek. Do tell.
Look, I am not gonna sit here and give you spoilers for all the late 90s, early 2000s wrestling drama that happened. You're gonna have to do that yourself. But no, so after
I'm
that,
gonna be up on the Wikipedia page after this trying to cram.
I think it would probably be interesting to go back and read that. I'm not saying I'm going to do that. I'm not saying I'm not going to do that. So are you familiar with like WWF versus WCW, like that rivalry and things like that?
Not really. As I said, once you get out of the Hulk Hogan era, an early Hulk, not heel turn Hulk, like original rip the shirt,
right?
That Hulkamania level Hulk.
Right.
That's where I kind of got out of the scene, as it were.
Right.
And my knowledge from that point until this point is at probably just close to zero.
Yeah, now I know that that like WWE is like the culmination of like all the different wrestling federations and whatnot. So I'm sure that collectively they came up with a decent storylines, and it's so weird. Like maybe not weird. That's not the right word. It's kind of odd to see like wrestling still be as big as it is, because it's pageantry. It's ridiculous, but it kind of crosses like just cuts across a lot of different socioeconomic levels, because I don't know, there's something universal that kind of, not everybody's going to like it, but it doesn't matter what socioeconomic status you have, it clicks with them, and they get that pageantry, that odd microcosm that is this thing. So I mean, more
And
power.
a lot of the wrestlers, like, it is an enormously athletic production.
Absolutely.
Like, these guys are out there, they are, they're putting their blood, sweat, tears into this entertainment medium. So I am not in any way, shape, or form knocking them. Like,
Absolutely not.
I know the old canard joke is, oh, wrestling's fake, and it's like, yeah, no shit, but at the same time, let's see you go get, do some of these flying off the top rope horse shit. Even if there's a lot of give on that mat, I don't want to do a belly flop off the top of it.
Fuck no. I mean, yeah, and like you said, like, it is quote unquote, people call it fake. The outcomes are largely or entirely, I'm not even gonna I don't even know how much predetermined. Like almost all the fights are predetermined. Like they follow a storyline. They actually have writers. Like they have people that are hired to concoct these storylines and sell it to people and get them riled up about it. And the thing is, the rest of that about some of the slaps and punches are fake and things like that. But look, Frank, I don't know how they're able to do it, but like, unless there's something I don't know, if you drop kick a motherfucker, you still hit the ground. Like you both.
Oh yeah, I mean they're hitting the ground and stuff.
Oh,
they're doing all these things in a way to minimize the amount of damage.
they have not
and
perfected,
maximize their safety. But
yeah, they have not perfected theatrical levitation yet. So
yeah, there's only so much you can do when your ass is hitting the floor.
Right.
Like that just still hurts.
Oh yeah.
A lot of these guys are enormously talented.
Absolutely.
Like The Rock, for instance, or Dwayne Johnson, as he, seems to prefer to be known now. They've got crossover careers into film and stuff like that because they have to be good actors in order to continue on with the whole wrestling thing.
Right.
And so they often can cross over into acting. You see a lot of them cross over into acting, some more successfully than others. And that's something that I admire quite a bit.
Sorry, just for some reason, I flash back to oh fuck, what was that movie where Hulk Hogan was the nanny? Oh my god,
was it just called The Nanny? I don't know.
That one, and there's another. I think there's another one called Tropic Thunder, where Hulk Hogan is like, I don't know. I know he's on a jet ski and swimming under the water at one point, but it's
Mr. Nanny.
Mr. Nanny, that's it. Oh my god. Hulk Hogan did not do it as successfully as some. I didn't mean to derail that quite as hard, but my mind just went into full like flashback mode.
Oh, those were like the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, that was the time of the Hulk Hogan film.
Right. Oh, those were dark days. I much prefer the days of our era of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson films. They're far, far superior.
I don't know. It's one of my guilty pleasures, but The Rundown is probably one of my favorite films.
I think The Rundown is the one that I was thinking of earlier. With the guy who played Stifler from American Pie. Yeah.
Yep.
That was the one. It is the weirdest movie because it is not a good movie. And
oh no.
I think you may be the one that kind of brought this to my attention, but it is not a good movie, but it is universally a lovable movie.
It is an entertaining film. Just talking about it honestly brings a smile to my face like few things can, and I don't know why.
Death, destruction, and the rundown.
And the rundown. Like, just a couple of my favorite things. I'll have to sing a song about
it. Oh, God.
Want to take an issue from the internet?
Yeah, let's do that. All right, I'll preface this one by saying that this one's a little out of left field, and whenever I go and find these issues from the internet, I typically try to find some that are more or less plausible. I think the $700 sex butt is the furthest out into left field I think I've gotten with some of these. This one,
I mean, the $700 sex butt was pretty good, and the bit we did was even better.
I think this one may have been somebody just goofing, but I couldn't pass it up when I saw it. All right, the title.
All right, hit me.
The title is "My Child Just Purchased an Actual Tank on eBay." By What in the Actual Hell?
All right.
Yeah. So their username is What in the Actual Hell. So very, very on point for this one. So I got a phone call telling me that having a tank delivered via transport would be at minimum $500, even though they were paying the shipping since it would need vehicular transport. Or I can come get it at the New York airport and delivery to my house would then be my job. I asked what they were talking about, and they told me this address phone number ordered a Panzer tank from them on eBay and already paid the fee. My only child is my 13-year-old daughter, who says she saw a $34 tank on auction, but she thought it was some kind of anime tank or small collectible, I suppose. That was like 10 inches, not the real tank. I tried to tell the guy, but he said it's too late now. He has already paid the shipping, and it's being shipped at this very moment. I have no idea how in the hell she bought this or got access to our credit card. Yes, because access to your credit card is the least plausible part of all this. But now I have to pay $500 plus to get this thing when I don't want it. He told me, okay, he told me there were no shells in it, and it was small enough to ride as a car. And that it was a lucky
What the fuck?
And that it was a lucky auction for me. He should have set the auction amount lower, basically trying to get me to pay the rest of the fees. But now I'm stuck. I can't cancel this, and I don't know the exact price of what it'll be. Also reading the eBay rules, canceling auctions is not permitted. So I must pay the rest of this. Does anyone else use eBay or know how I could stop this before it's too late? My daughter doesn't need a tank. I love the selling job that this guy does. It's like, there's no shells in it. It's small enough to ride around in as a car.
It's probably not gonna fuck up your yard too bad. I want to live in a world in which this is a problem someone actually had.
I agree.
I think that's what we're going to go with as the premise.
I think so. Because the thing is, I know that this might just be a goof. I get it. I have no false illusions that this is 100% true, but I want to
But the world
believe.
is a better place when some lady is trying to go to the internet to figure out what to do with her unwanted tank that her 13-year-old daughter bought.
Oh.
Because at some point, she's going to need a first vehicle for learning to drive.
Absolutely.
And honestly, what's going to be safer for your precious baby to learn how to drive than a decommissioned World War II tank?
That was almost like verbatim what my inner monologue was saying. I was like, how can you possibly pick a safer first vehicle than that? Like, I drove an 85 Ford Ranger, which was tank-esque. Like, it was a very heavy vehicle. I did not really get into any wrecks, but I feel like it would have, basically whatever I hit would have definitely been worse for wear compared to my vehicle. But no, if I had been able to drive around in a tank, I think my parents would have slept better, got a lot better sleep at night, I feel.
And the thing is, after she has got it figured out, like, if you can parallel park a Panzer, she ain't gonna have no fucking problem with her Tesla Model 3 later
Absolutely
in life
not.
or whatever.
Oh God, can you imagine like driving that fucker up to the DMV for your driver's license test? Like, where would the inspector or whoever it is, the instructor, even sit? Like, are they just like riding on the turret or something?
I was gonna say, I think they're gonna have to sit in like the little commander pod that's up on the
Okay.
turret.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So they'll actually not even really be paying attention to how you're driving because they're going to be pretending to shoot every car that goes by. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you're guaranteed to pass your driver's exam, you know, regardless of how many cars you run over or stoplights you run through, like the pole and everything else attached to it. Because the guy's going to be having so much fun up there playing captain that
He's not paying
you're just going to
attention.
get passed out of hand.
So when I took my driver's license test, I got it almost perfect, except for one thing. They said that when I was backing up, I didn't back up with enough confidence. If I was in a fucking Panzer tank, you bet your ass I'm going to be backing up with confidence. I'm doing everything with confidence. Doing a 3-point turn, merging 5 lanes of traffic. Man, I could not be more confident than in a fucking Panzer tank. I mean, I'm not even going to put on my blinker because, I mean, okay, if you're on the road, everyone around you is paying attention to the fucking Panzer tank. They're going to forget
Oh,
about
yeah, that's defensive driving 101. Actually, that's defensive driving 001. That's the rule that they don't cover. There's not a class for that, but that's the basic line is if there is a tank, it gets right of way in all situations. Like,
4-way stops,
you
yield
come
signs,
to
whatever.
a 4-way stop sign, who gets to go first? The 13-year-old girl in a tank.
See, I was hoping this would be a good goof. I didn't think that I would actually end up wanting to now go and drive a Panzer tank around. Like, this is really sounding like a viable alternative to my Camry. Oh, God.
This is a dream that a lot of people have, Derek, and I'm fairly certain that you can make it a reality. I've seen places where you can go and pay a certain amount of money to go drive an old tank around for a while.
I mean, that would be a neat experience. But, like, see...
But, yeah, I think it takes something else. Apparently $500 wired to some guy at the New York airport to make it your daily commuter.
So here's the thing. Now, let's for a minute suspend our disbelief and just truly lean into the fact that this happened. I am not 100% on eBay's terms of service, but I feel that decommissioned war machines is on a list somewhere. Like, I'm pretty
Oh, I'm sure there's probably a list. Like, shit you shouldn't fuck with on eBay.
Right.
Down on, like, no, it's, probably not number 1. It's probably number 29.
Right.
Is, no sales of weapons of war. And that's for your safety and also sort of global safety, because what you don't want is war pigs getting on there and selling all their old machinery.
Right.
I don't necessarily need to pop on over to eBay and get a couple of Scud missiles for pennies on the dollar.
I mean, especially like $34. Like, if you're gonna sell a fucking Panzer tank on eBay, you gotta set the reserve at least like $1,000. Like, come on. Like, this is not. What is it? God, what was it? That auction site where you can like basically bid a penny at a time. Like, this is not one of those. Like, you need a solid reserve so that, I mean, this is basically like somebody's allowance. Like, she spent her allowance to buy a fucking
What you don't
Panzer
understand,
tank.
Derek, is these tanks are priced to move. We've got to get these tanks off the lot and into the hands of buyers. So the question I have for you, Derek, is what is it going to take to get you in this tank today?
Apparently $534 exactly.
$534.99.
God damn, tank's price to move. God.
possible downside that I can see to this whole thing is that gassing up is gonna be an absolute bitch.
Where would where's the gas tank on this thing? Where's the gas cap? Like,
Well, when you're sitting in the tank, the secret is if you look at the fuel gauge, there's a little arrow on the left or right that's going to tell you whether the cap is on the left or the right side of the tank. And being how difficult it is to move with the tank, you really want to check that shit before you get into the gas station, because backing back out and wheeling it back around, that's not exactly easy.
Yeah, if you pull into the pump on the wrong side, you have just committed yourself to a lot of damage. Oh my god.
And sure, the tank was $35, but when you get 5 gallons to the mile...
And really, what? Okay, maybe I'm not up to date on. Well, I guess not even up to date. I am not familiar with some of the old World War II weaponry. What were the max speeds of these things? Like, can they do interstate speed? Like,
the thing is, and it's scary as shit. Yes, they can. I think
Really?
a lot of even the older ones could get up to like 55 miles an hour or so.
God bless. Yeah, all you gotta hit's 45. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they'll book it, I guess. But
So I
Jeez.
mean, it's not as fast, but it's as fast as you need to be, Derek.
I mean,
Like how fast can the tank go? As fast as it wants. There are no speed limits where we're going.
Oh my god. I thought that we were just gonna make fun of this and move on, but like I said, the viability of a tank for my daily commute is really taking a shine. Oh god. All right, you want to punch the clock?
Let's punch the clock.
If you have any questions you'd like for us to answer on air, send them to questions@WLIcast.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/WLIcast or on Twitter at WLImbalance and use the hashtag WLIcast.
This has been the Work-Life Imbalance Podcast. I'm Frank Eastman.
And I'm Derek Lewis.
And with that, I think we're going to have to transfer you.
I'm making a list of pros and cons, Frank.
There's a
It's
lot
so
more in the
far-
pro.
A lot more in the pros. I mean, the only con so far is like an international terrorist watch list. Like that's
Yeah, but I mean,
that's a big one.
terrorist watch list, the gas thing, gas prices are rising, but maybe they'll come out with a hybrid.